Welcome to the deep dive. You send us sources, we dig in and pull out the key insights, maybe the surprising bits, everything to help you get informed fast.
Exactly. We sift through it all to find those, real moments of understanding, making complex stuff a bit more approachable.
And today we're looking at a very personal story a listener sent over. It's called Mountain of Clamshells, 005 in the original. It's about a Taiwanese boy, Asi, and a really pivotal moment in his life.
Yeah, our mission here is to really unpack that turning point for Aussie, what actually happened, and maybe what does it suggest about, well, how lives can change, sometimes in really unexpected ways. It feels personal, but it touches on bigger themes, I think.
Okay, so let's start with the setting. Asi's early life. The text describes this upbringing in rural Taiwan.
Yeah.
Feels worlds away from today, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. We're talking very limited technology, like no internet, no smartphones, hardly any TVs or newspapers even.
So life revolved around different things.
Right, the daily rhythm. Farming with his parents, the text says, and then helping out at the family's traditional Chinese medicine clinic, the Gushu Guan.
Doing what exactly?
Oh, applying plasters, keeping the place tidy, just constant sort of physical work. It makes you wonder how those kinds of early experiences shape you compared to, say, growing up online.
Good point. And the text mentions this lack of typical kid stuff. Not much playtime, it seems.
Yeah, more a sense of duty, maybe, a quietness. And it uses this phrase, unspeakable fatigue, like there's this feeling of destiny already laid out.
Like a weight on him even as a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which sort of leads into this other major issue, the chronic nosebleeds.
Ah, yes. This started really young, right? Not just a minor thing.
No, the text makes it clear it was persistent, really affected him.
And his father tried all sorts of things.
Yeah, traditional remedies, things like raw shrimp, loofah water, different herbs and plasters. You get a real sense of the family's world, their medical understanding.
Did it say how long this went on?
It implies it was quite a long time, and crucially, nothing worked. The text even describes the illness as not ordinary, almost like destiny whispering.
Wow. So more than just a physical problem in their view.
Right. It sets the stage for something deeper.
Which brings us to this turning point. A customer at the clinic says something.
Yeah, almost offhand. Mentions karmic illness, yin gobing, as a possible reason for things that, don't get better with normal treatment.
Okay, so karmic illness, what's the basic idea there?
Well, it's rooted in the belief that actions, maybe from this life, maybe a past one, can have consequences for your health. It's an explanation for suffering that doesn't fit neatly into, say, a purely physical medical box.
And the customer suggested something specific.
That vowing to become vegetarian might help, might bring a change.
And this comment, even though it was casual, it really landed with Aussie.
Deeply. The text has this beautiful line about it being like a dust particle falling into the young boy's heart lake, silent yet never sinking. It just shows how one idea can lodge itself in your mind, especially when you're desperate.
So what does he do?
He goes to a temple, a small, quiet village temple, on his own.
Who does he pray to?
The text mentions Maitreya Buddha, the one usually shown with a smiling, peaceful face. It's quite a poignant image, isn't it? This suffering kid seeking help from this serene figure.
And he makes a vow.
Silently. He promises that if his nosebleeds get better, he'll be a vegetarian for life.
But it wasn't just about the nosebleeds, was it?
No. The text suggests there was more packed into that prayer. All the fear he'd held onto, the feeling of helplessness. Maybe a desire for some kind of spiritual escape, too. He's taking action, finally.
It feels like a really significant moment, and then something quite unexpected happens soon after.
Right. The story takes a turn. He finds a medical article. In a newspaper, of all places.
Okay, so shifting gears here, what was the article about?
It described causes and, crucially, modern treatments for nasal problems. Specifically, it mentioned things like minimally invasive surgery, septoplasty.
Which is?
Septoplasty corrects a deviated septum, the wall between your nostrils. And it also mentioned laser surgery, which can be used for various things, like stopping bleeding.
So suddenly there's a very different kind of potential solution on the table.
Exactly. A modern medical one. And Aussie's reaction is immediate.
He jumps on it.
Straight away. Goes to the hospital to register. But what's really fascinating is how he interprets finding this article.
How so?
He sees it as a response arranged by heaven. Like it's a direct answer to the vow he just made at the temple.
Ah, so he connects the spiritual and the practical. The vow and the surgery.
Precisely. It's that intersection that's so compelling in his story.
Okay, so he goes ahead with the surgery. It's done under local anesthetic.
Yeah. And maybe he thought it would be relatively straightforward, but it turns out to be quite painful.
Where does the pain come in?
The text highlights the moment the doctor starts separating the periosteum, that's the membrane covering the bone inside the nose. Apparently, that was intensely painful.
And it's during that intense pain that something really strange happens.
Yes. This is the core of it, really.
Yeah.
He has this incredibly vivid hallucination, or maybe a vision.
What does he see?
He sees a mountain valley just absolutely filled with clam shells. Countless shells covering everything in the operating room.
Wow. Just clamshells.
Yeah. The phrase suggests overflowing, an immense quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And they're described as silent, gleaming,
Yeah.
almost like they're watching him, judging him maybe.
That is a powerful image. And
Uh,
it connects to something specific for him, doesn't it?
Immediately. It triggers this memory from his childhood,
Which was?
his habit of eating raw, pickled clams. He remembers really enjoying them, the salty taste. And he remembers the pile of shells that would build up on the table afterward.
Like his own little mountain.
Exactly. He even felt a sort of pride or accomplishment seeing all those empty shells.
But now in the operating room, under duress.
Now those same shells feel different. They feel like a mirror of karmic retribution, Yabao. That past pleasure is suddenly seen through the lens of present pain.
So he feels powerless.
Powerless, yeah, and accepting both the physical pain of the surgery and this spiritual pain, this sense of consequence.
So not just about the nose anymore.
Not at all. The text explicitly says it felt like a settling of accounts from a deep level of life. It links right back to that idea of karmic illness mentioned earlier.
So the surgery itself becomes this deeply symbolic event for him.
Absolutely. And the recovery period reinforces that.
How so? Was it difficult?
Very. For a week, his nose is packed solid. 11 cotton strips in each nostril, apparently. Couldn't breathe through his nose at all.
That sounds awful.
And removing and replacing those cotton strips. Agony. The text compares it to the feeling of a clam being ripped from its shell.
Wow, that imagery again.
Mm.
Directly linking his suffering to the clams.
Mm-hmm. He's sleepless, uncomfortable, and through this pain, he gains this new visceral understanding of the cycle of, well, eating and being eaten.
A harsh lesson.
A very harsh lesson.
Then finally the packing comes out.
Yes, the last strips were removed. His nasal passages clear up, but he doesn't, jump for joy.
No. What does he do?
He stands by the hospital window, quietly thinking, and his thoughts go back to the Maitreya Buddha, the smiling face in the temple.
And this is when he makes the change.
This is the moment, the text says, he starts eating vegetarian. But his reason is key.
It wasn't just fulfilling the vow.
Not just that.
Yeah.
And not out of fear either. It's framed as a spiritual promise, something internal, deeply felt, a commitment he made to himself or perhaps to the divine based on this whole experience.
He saw the suffering differently afterwards.
Yes. He saw it less as punishment and more as a kind of reminder. Even the pain he felt held a strange sort of grace.
And the vision. The clamshells.
It stayed with him. Dreamlike, maybe, but profoundly real in its impact. It wasn't just a random side effect of the anesthesia for him. It was meaningful.
So the whole experience shifted something fundamental in him.
Completely. The text talks about him moving from just, coping with life to engaging in this deeper dialogue. A dialogue with the divine, it says, and with the sacred within.
Finding meaning in it all.
Exactly. Which leads to the concluding thought in the piece, this heartfelt saying.
What does it say?
Some people make vows in joy. Some, however, communicate with the divine in the midst of tearing.
That really captures Aussie's experience, doesn't it?
Perfectly. It emphasizes that his vegetarianism wasn't just about food, it was about a karmic awakening.
The surgery released the past.
And the clear breathing was like welcoming a new beginning. It all comes back to that central image, the mountain of clamshells. From that vision, he saw himself differently and heard that soft whisper from the divine.
It's an incredible story of personal transformation, sparked by pain, by a strange vision linked to his past, leading to this lifelong spiritual commitment.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, about our own lives? Could experiences that seem random or even just painful actually hold some deeper significance?
Could they be offering insights we're missing about ourselves, our past actions?
Is there maybe a whisper, like the text says, hidden in our own mountains, whatever those might be for you, the things we accumulate, the experiences, the choices?
It's definitely food for thought, thinking about those turning points, those moments of clarity that sometimes come when things are toughest.
Yeah, even if you don't have a literal vision of clamshells, maybe just paying attention.
Yeah.
Paying attention to those recurring themes, to those really intense
Yeah.
experiences.
It might offer its own kind of understanding.
Exactly. A unique way of looking inward, prompted by what happens outwardly.